I think
so just keep
right. I think that's the main idea. I don't think it's and I'm certainly not here to defend the party, but I don't think it's conscious thought of screw them. But I think it's the thinking ends that like you were just saying, they'd have to be idiots to vote Republican, and then they don't take it any further, out to say, all right, so what can we be doing? It's like people who say everything happens for a reason and then don't give a shit about what the reason is. Like, no, you need to figure out what the reason is. And if you like the thing that happened, knowing the reason can help you make it happen again. If you didn't like what happened, knowing the reason can help you stop it from happening again.
See, this is where I disagree. I do think, because I worked, and I'm sure it's not everyone all across the board, but I worked for Democrats for a while, and when I was in school, I interned for them. And I do think they have an idea of screw non-white people, like screw minorities. I think it's there. It's not every politician, but it's certainly there, because we're just there for votes, but not really to be citizens or individuals.
To be heard.
Yeah, we're not. Yeah.
To be felt.
Yeah, we're to be seen, not heard, right? Or maybe not even seen, just as long as we're a number. So, I think a lot of Democrats in office, including, surprisingly, people of color who are also in the party, also have that attitude towards POC.
It interests me when people have to go people of color, who are in the party. I'm agreeing with you. However, to move forward,
exactly,
people of color have to pretend they're white.
Exactly.
Because if you come in acting like you're still in South Central, it's like, excuse me, when will she be leaving?
This is true.
So you have to learn the ways of the white man, get where you think you ought to go. And
but I think that's true of every. I mean, when in Rome, do as the Romans do wouldn't be a cliche if wouldn't have stuck around this long if it wasn't at least true in part. And I agree, and I don't necessarily, this is going to sound really
come on, let's hear
privileged,
it. Let's hear
it. But I think, so many people think of, taking what you were just saying about, you have to act white. And I think so many people think, acting black, means like the worst, like ghetto stereotype, coming in with chains and, doing high fives and whatever people think black people do, and it's, it's not, sure, there are some, but that is not necessarily what acting black is, or, it's, there are certain, like, just because someone has a Southern accent doesn't mean they're a cracker, it's, there are black people with Southern accents, but I think, when you say, the way the establishment is, it's a sad thing that you have to act white,
I cannot walk in for an interview. I mean, for a, typical type job and go, yo, hey, what's up? And, get my head going. And,
but also,
you ain't going to say that. I come in and I say, good morning. Yes, I'm Shirlee Smith. Nice to meet you. And then when I leave and get back to my house, the mask comes off.
It goes even beyond that when you're talking about minorities in political spaces, because in general, like, whatever, you speak the way you do at work, but it's when you're in the political space, you're talking about political worldviews and what kind of policies you think are priority. And that's where I think it gets really dangerous, because that's where you start filtering yourself and make sure, you don't seem too brown or too, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so you have to keep organizing your priorities. If you say, I speak for women, make sure the priorities of white feminists are being spoken first, and then slowly get around to yours, so people don't think you're scary, so people don't think you're radical. So that's why just putting people, like, I think it's really important for people of color to be represented in politics, because the more of our voices you hear, the more normal it becomes. But just throwing in a token here and there is not doing anything, because so I think it goes beyond, like, I can go as, like, where I was, if I went in one day like dressed like real South Asian clothes, they would have loved it. That'd have been a photo op for everybody. You know what I mean? So I could go in there looking Indian, and I could be like, here's some curry I made, and feed everybody. I can be super Indian in that environment in the external sense, actually. I don't know. I think South Asians, like, because we're quote-unquote model minorities, we don't get treated in the same way. So I think for me as a South Asian, I could do that.
Well,
and everyone's like, oh, how
not-
pretty, your clothes and your food taste delicious. But the moment I say, hey, neoliberalism is a problem, I'm gone. Do you know what I mean?
I'm not saying this is a good thing in any way, but hey, two Indian engineers were shot in Kansas this week by a white guy screaming, "Get out of our country!"
And it took 3 days to make national.
Welcome to real minority rather than model minority.
And it took 3 days to hit the national news. And the reason why is because it's hit international news so hard that it had to hit American national news. So
see, now you're back supporting Donald Trump.
I'm not supporting Donald Trump.
No, your statement. I don't mean you as a person, but how the news is manipulated.
Yeah.
See, but all right, but I think there's a fine line, and I do want to move on because we have a few other issues that I'd like to talk about. But I think there's a fine line that you can still criticize the media without going full Trump and the media is fake because I don't like what they report. The media,
There's
the
a
president,
nuance we could talk-
absolutely, but nothing is beyond criticism. However, there are a lot of people and entities that believe they should be, and we are a movement. We here in this room, as this podcast, are part of the movement to go. Oh no, you're open to criticism. As comedians, I think we can all say no. Everything is open to criticism.
Absolutely.
Nothing is sacred. Sometimes you do need to be careful about how you phrase things. They say tragedy plus time is comedy. Oh. So, how much time? But ultimately, no, nothing is sacred. Everything should be dissected in some form. But like Josh and I were talking before the show about what were we talking about? What was I going to bring up here?
Covered a lot of subjects.
Yeah, we did.
And he's not even 80 years old.
Right.
Help us.
Right.
I blame the drugs. But no, nothing is beyond reproach. And we'll just move into the next topic.
I just wanted to say really quickly.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that when you were talking about your tropes of acting black, you said wearing chains and doing high fives. And I never thought of doing high fives, particularly. I really
that's because the white man has co-opted that part of the black
culture. It was fully appropriated.
Right.
By corny white dudes.
Yes, that is true.
Thanks, bros. And I do say bros and not brothers because we know who I'm talking about. But last topic on CPAC that we've sort of been talking around this topic, and the chief Nazi in the White House. Steve Bannon,
sure.
the one.
Right.
I know. There are aspire. I think Bannon is still holding that title, if not the title of president right now.
Yeah.
But one of the things he said at CPAC was that they are there to tear down the administrative state. Basically, is explaining the cabinet that he and Trump have put together is there not to help these agencies like the EPA and the Department of and the Department of Energy succeed, but basically to make them fail by putting the most incompetent, horrible people in charge of them.
And in the case of the EPA, someone who wanted to destroy the EPA.
Well, and Rick Perry is the Secretary of Energy. Come on.
DeVos as the Secretary of Education.
But, the one thing I'm shocked and amazed by this, but I do want props for at least standing up for transgendered students this week before she was immediately shot down and decided to be a good girl and a party girl. And by that, I mean Republican Party, not party girl.
Not the fun kind.
Not
the good kind of party girl. No.
Yeah. Not Bachelorette. Yeah. She actually did stand up against bullying and did want to keep the protections for trans students in before Jeff Sessions and Trump said, no, we're getting rid of that. She's okay. You know,
She's probably scared of them. I mean, wouldn't you be scared of a Nazi though?
Oh God!
If a Nazi told you not to do something, wouldn't you be like, "Oh yes, sir"? Like, I mean, I'm scared of Nazis.
I would, but you know, my life has been spent standing up to bullies.
Yeah.
You know, we're an audio podcast. So if you're friends with me on social media or know how to Google, you don't know what I look like, but I wouldn't say I have a stereotypically Jewish nose. But it used to be a lot straighter before it got broken several times throughout my life, twice in fights. But no, so I understand, not wanting to stand up to the Nazis and being afraid of them. But you're an American. As we said on the show a few weeks ago, good Americans punch Nazis.
Yeah, that's true.
Well,
and sometimes the Nazis punch back, and that's what happens when you start punching people. You got to be ready for that.
I think in her case, in Betsy DeVos's case, and by extension, like a lot of people in the Republican of job security,
Absolutely,
but not punching back.
Especially if you're getting into politics, and I understand wanting to keep your job so you can affect more change, but. It seems like a lot of people in politics, both sides, but we're mostly seeing it with Republicans because they're in charge, are keeping their job for the sake of keeping their job. It's pure self-interest. And
it's if
you are guided solely by pure self-interest, don't go into politics.
But
politics
that's
is
what we
not
have everywhere.
Absolutely,
Most
but
people
it's
have jobs.
Yes,
not because they're committed. They're committed to the paycheck. Because somebody has sold
but what
them
I'm saying,
to the paycheck,
but what I'm saying, there, that is well, it may still, not be the greatest thing. It's more acceptable in business, and it's understandable in business, whereas it shouldn't be in politics.
But see, that's where I have to disagree with you, like I've agreed with everybody all the rest of this time. When you start separating out. Business, politics, education, law enforcement. No. For me, and I like to represent the people from Appalachia and the people from South Central, generally don't have a voice. They aren't separating out these entities. The practices that filter out to people aren't any different. They're all there to collect a paycheck. The social worker.
Right. I don't deny that. I agree that that's a fact. But what I'm saying is if that is your guiding force, if self-interest is what guides you, politics is not the right field for you. Let's say I'm a huge horror film aficionado. I splatter films of the 80s, the slasher films. The gorier, the better. This does not qualify me to go into medicine.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm saying is I have my own problems with objectivism and this whole Ayn Rand that's gotten into the Republican Party. But if self-interest is your guiding force, politics is not the right field for you.
Is the guiding force of politicians?
But
whether you want to admit it or not,
no, I agree. I agree that it is. I don't think it should be though.
Yeah,
that's what
America.
I'm saying.
Everything is self-interest.
But see, the problem with that is that you can say that about anything. It's not progressing the conversation. If you say that's how it is everywhere, like I was a social service worker, and I didn't do it for the money. Like I had to collect a paycheck to live, but I didn't do it for the money. I'm really intelligent. I could have done a lot of things, but I did it because that's something I cared about. I left it because I realized how corrupt that system is, but and I wasn't helping anybody, so I left it. But I don't think everyone is guided by self-interest. Like even as a comic, like okay, I'm a South Asian comic. If I wanted to just get booked for a lot of things in tour, all I have to do is make dumb accents and make fun of my parents. That would be really easy for me. I see the South Asians who are coming up quickly. I don't do it for a reason because that's not why I started. That's not my voice, and I'm not interested in it.
At the risk of sounding like stereotypical white guy, do you watch Master of None?
No, I don't like that show. It's a boring show to me. I don't know.
There was a great episode, where it was basically like the whole minstrel. It's like, well, I don't want to be, the 7-Eleven terrorist guy.
That's the one thing I give him. The show itself is a little too male for me, but I feel like that's one thing I give Aziz a lot of credit for is that he's one of the examples that you can I think it's really difficult to make it. He got onto Parks and Rec. Not everyone gets that, but he did. So I don't know. I don't know if it's an example that you can or not, but he did it. So I give him credit for that. At least some people are doing it. But yeah, I know the easiest way to book shows. I could tour easily. I could, I see the South Asian comics who are booking more shows than me. No one would say they're funnier comics or smarter comics than me, but I know what they do. They just feed into the stereotypes as rather than being themselves, So I think if you're self-interested, there's a lot of ways to do that. And so like when I was social service worker, I didn't do it for that reason. I didn't go in it for, that's not a job you would do for the money because there is no money in it. And so I feel like if you're about the paycheck, become an accountant. You're probably going to make more money as an accountant than you are as a politician until you get to really high levels. You're not really
basically,
making money as a
if you go to the therapist
Yeah.
and you sit down in the chair, or, get on the couch